SpongeBob Goofs Nickelodeon Hates. Ready for a round of SpongeBob goofs and mistakes? Well, grab some popcorn, take something to drink, and get comfortable, cause here are 8 cool and funny goofs in SpongeBob SquarePants. Number 1. Reef Blower. Reef Blower is one of the most interesting episodes in SpongeBob because, unlike others, this episode has no dialogue at all. But hey, we are in search of errors, so maybe dialogue isn't the only thing that's missing right now. Let's start with one that might be fast, but still an error after all. When SpongeBob grabs the machine he uses to blow and clean streets, we see a strange thing happening to his house. Usually, Bob's house has a window on the first floor, but, well, maybe animators forgot to place it because suddenly, when Bob is cleaning the street, no window seems to be found. Strange, right? Well, it's even stranger when we jump a couple of moments after and the window is back to the first floor where it usually is. Let us continue because this is not the only thing we're going to find in this episode. At the start of this adventure, Squidward seemed to love flowers because he had one right in front of the door of his house, or at least that is what animators wanted us to believe. If we jump forward in the episode when SpongeBob drains all the water into his blowing machine, we see that Squidward is sadly sitting in the door of his house. But where's the flower? Of course, it's magically disappeared. Reef Blower is such a cool and unique episode, but as we told you before, dialogue is not the only thing missing here. Number 2. He loses his pants? SpongeBob might have done lots of things during his career as a TV star, but like with all things in life, his career has had some highs and lows. Let's take a look at what happens in the episode Ripped Pants, because this is a very funny one to analyze. Here in this episode, SpongeBob jokes about ripping his pants after trying to lift some weights with Larry the Lobster and Sandy. This goes to the point that SpongeBob becomes famous all around Bikini Bottom for this, and he even does a song about how this happened. So let's jump to the point where he performs his newly created song because, oh man, here is a big error. When we see SpongeBob singing, we see him make some moves that provoked his pants to rip the first time, but this time, instead of ripping his pants, we see that his underwear is the one that ends up broken. Well, when the camera zooms out from Bob, if you look carefully at his attire, something seems a bit odd, right? He's no longer wearing his underwear and he's back to wearing his full swimsuit again. Maybe the animators thought that there was enough embarrassment for SpongeBob to suffer and decided to give him back his clothes. Even with this error, the episode is really cool and we recommend you watch it. Number 3, no criminals allowed. Knock Knock Who's There might be one of the craziest episodes from SpongeBob's newer seasons, so let's see what happens here and what we can find in this cool adventure. In this episode, SpongeBob watches Mr. Krabs' house while he's away and goes to extreme measures to prevent burglary. These measures include things like locking the windows, always keeping a weapon on his person, and not stepping foot into his bedroom. All these measures will later backfire on Krabs because, as he told Bob, nobody can enter his house and SpongeBob won't let Krabs enter himself. If we take a closer look at Krabs' house, boy, we have a great goof right here. At the start of the episode, when we see Krabs leaving his home, the door does not have a mail slot. This might not be very strange at first, right? This all changes because when we see that SpongeBob has ordered a pizza for dinner, he's able to eat it through a newly appeared mail slot. Even if SpongeBob didn't let anyone enter Krabs' house, he for sure created ways for him to have dinner and enjoy a great pizza. Number 4, a magic clarinet. We know that Squidward is a really talented musician, but did we know he had magical instruments? Or at least ones that can change color? That is exactly what happens in Season 9's Squid Plus One. This episode shows us Squidward receiving an invitation to a gallery opening and scrambles to find a friend to take with him, but only SpongeBob is intent on going with him. Searching for a solution, Squidward even tries to befriend Larry the Lobster, which will lead us to what we we are looking for. What will be the juicy error this time? Well, Squidward may not have the best social abilities and ways to interact with others, and while he's mocking Larry for being addicted to his protein shakes and needing them to survive, something funny happens to Squidward's clarinet. Suddenly, the clarinet has become golden. This might be a reference to Squidward's talent as a musician, or maybe it's just a cool little error that animators forgot to change. Anyways, it looks way cooler in that flashy golden tone. Number 5. Changing landscapes. Frankendoodle and Doodlebob were one of the highlights of the second season of the show. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick are playing rock, paper, scissors using bubbles when the pencil suddenly lands in between them. SpongeBob and Patrick, at first terrified of the large artifact, start to doodle with it. They soon come to discover that whatever they draw with the pencil is brought to life, and thus dub it the Magic Pencil. SpongeBob soon draws Doodlebob, a sketch version of himself intended to fool Squidward. However, Doodlebob beats Squidward up and steals the magic pencil, going off to wreak havoc across the seascape. SpongeBob eventually turns the tide of battle and uses the pencil's eraser to rub out Doodlebob. But with all this drawing madness, for sure we were able to find a small error of our own, one that doesn't come from SpongeBob paintings at least. When SpongeBob is fighting Doodlebob inside his house, we see that the photos that are hanged up in the wall of the living room are completely empty, which is rare for a photo. But if we jump a couple of moments later, we see that they've turned into photos of Patrick, the outside of the house, and other things related to SpongeBob. How curious this is. Well, this might be a consequence of SpongeBob drawings, or maybe it was something that the animators forgot to paint, unlike Bob does during this episode. Number 6. Squidward misses his neck. In every SpongeBob season, there is a tendency for characters to lose some of their body parts. Let's take a look at this episode from Season 6, Sun Bleached. In this episode, SpongeBob accidentally gets sun bleached when he and Patrick tan to join Craig Mamelton's party. Patrick converts his house into a tanning machine, able to give them the minimum tan in just 15 seconds. Patrick goes first and gets a perfect tan. But during SpongeBob's turn, Patrick forgets to watch over SpongeBob and leaves him in for 2 hours while he goes off with a group of girls. After Patrick finally lets him out, SpongeBob has ended up with a white, sun-bleached tan that dehydrates his skin. Some moments after, Squidward starts mocking SpongeBob because his skin has dried up and how funny he looks. Then when Squidward shouts, "You're sun-bleached," in SpongeBob's face, his neck goes missing for a brief moment. This might be really hard to catch at first because it is only a brief and fast moment, but if you look close enough, it's really cool to catch it. SpongeBob might have lost part of his skin, but Squidward lost even more in this episode. Number 7. Flying legs. If our last error was about Squidward losing his neck, think about this. What if he loses his legs? Wallhalla is an episode about SpongeBob discovering a crazed castaway living in his walls. When SpongeBob arrives home, he sees Gary stuck in the walls of the house. To get into the walls, SpongeBob opens the door on a picture of his parents' house and goes inside. The door closes, leaving him trapped behind the walls. Inside the walls, SpongeBob sees Gary's shadow. A crazed, bearded old man snarls at him, scaring him. However, Gary is safe and the man gives him a treat. He introduces himself as Wally C, a man who has lived inside the walls for years. At the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob prepares a giant Krabby Patty. He gives it to Wally, whose hand is sticking out from the floorboard. Wally then travels into the cash register, asking Squidward for mustard. Horrified, Squidward runs out of the restaurant screaming as SpongeBob and Wally laugh, only for Wally to stop and comment that he still hates SpongeBob's laugh. So let's rewind back to this moment at the Krusty Krab when Bob has prepared a patty for Wally. Again, Squidward is the usual suspect of this error too. When Wally scares him, Squidward jumps super scared and his legs start to move super fast. Maybe the speed of his legs was so fast that they even separated from their body for a brief moment and they moved behind the wooden boat of the Krusty Krab. What a funny moment to discover, even if it's super fast and it's hard to find and watch. Well, Nickelodeon may have tried to hide them, but those are some goofs and errors that you can find in SpongeBob. If you want to watch more SpongeBob-related content, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel so you can help us create more of Bikini Bottom's crazy and fun stories.